Welcome back. Second debate, second showdown. This week, Republican candidates met in Smii Valley, California at the Reagan National Library to duke it out for the second GOP primary debate of this election cycle. 7 candidates made it onto the stage and debated topics ranging from abortion to foreign policy, and why they were the best alternative to former President Donald Trump, who continues to lead by miles in this GOP primary. The night was filled with notable moments, insults, and attacks. We'll break it down bit by bit, candidate by candidate, and take a look at who won, who lost, and whose turn it is to drop out. We'll be taking a look at those stories and more today, September 29th, 2023. From Ishan Media, this is the Ishan S. Show, a podcast about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics, with me, your host, Ishan. Welcome to the Ishan S. Show. We are so happy to have you back on for another great episode. We're at that point now where college apps are happening, where all these discussions about a billion things are going on. So the show has not been my primary focus, but we did have a Republican debate last night. We're recording this on a Thursday. We had a Republican debate last night, and it was something. I like to say that sometimes there are these debates where you just get absolutely nothing from them. This was one of them. So if you didn't tune in, and my episode today is your only source of information on it, good on you, because I don't think anybody wanted to watch that. Like, I will play 15 seconds of that debate. Listen to this, and you tell me if you are happy or sad about missing this debate.
This isn't productive.
I want to hear about that.
Let's have a policy debate. What's going on?
Let us have a policy debate.
Let's have about their record.
Let's have a policy debate. And the right answer is we need to. Here's the fact, though.
But I cut Jack, he said, I loaded up our
You wanted a tax increase, and then you wanted at the end of the day.
Are we talking about?
Yeah, not necessarily the best of performances. In one word, that's called chaos. And that was the theme of the night. You had Republicans, you had Democrats, even the candidates themselves admitting that this was not really a good, productive performance. I'm looking at my notes here. The first thing I said under overall comments is a really chaotic mess. Most of it was people talking over each other. It was Republicans attacking one another, when really the pundits agreed after the last debate that the strategy was not to attack one another, because they need to consolidate and they need to look united. Otherwise, the person they were going after, Donald Trump, who did not show up at this debate again because he doesn't want to go to the debates. But the point is if they attack each other, Donald Trump is the only one who keeps flying up. I will say the chaos of that debate, at least the chaos of it, did not come until later in the debate. It actually started off really boring. It was initially really lame, but then one thing, and we'll talk about that one thing, triggered a line of attacks, and suddenly we started seeing attack after attack after attack after attack. It was like they were waiting for one person. I also have a note about Fox News hosting the debate. I said it last time too. This time it was Fox Business, not Fox News, but Fox Business in conjunction with Univision, Spanish-speaking news network, hosted this debate. I've said it before. I don't think Fox News is good at debates. For them, it's a theatric, and it's not necessarily about the actual candidates, which I, as an observer, am really into the candidates, not as much as Fox News's graphic design guys' skills. So I felt like it was a lot more about the theatrics with them. I'm not hearing that they're hosting any future debates for the foreseeable future, so that's good, I guess. But yeah, Fox Business was managing this debate. It was moderated by Dana Perino, Stuart Varney, and Ilya Calderon. Dana Perino is a frequent Fox News analyst. She worked in the Bush administration. Stuart Varney is a Fox Business anchor, and Ilya Calderon is a Univision member or employee or anchor, rather. So these three were running the debate. Not necessarily very excited or proud of their skills. I think part of the reason there was so much chaos was because they were not able to hold this under control. Unlike Brett Baer and Martha McCallum in the first debate, they did a really good job of controlling people and telling them to shut up when they needed to. Here we saw something completely different, and I feel like we could have, if they had a little more control or their hands on the ball when it came to the moderating aspect, I think we could have had more. But let's get into the actual candidates. That was my spiel about it. We'll get to my actual overall thoughts at the end. But the way we're going to do this is a little different. We want to keep this episode shorter than the last episode we had, which was an hour long. I don't, want to do an hour-long episode again, and neither do you guys, I've heard. So we're keeping it an hour, or we're not keeping it an hour. But the way we were going to do this, the way I've formatted it, is we're going to talk about the candidate, what exactly they needed to do, what they did, if they did it, if they achieved their goals, and then any notable moments. We'll put them in as a clip. So that's how the analysis is going to look. And I'm going to not do it in any order. I'm just going to do it in polling order of the people that I think did good. There are people who I think didn't do good, and they're all in the same category. I'm not going to even bother talking about the people that I don't think matter, because I said in the beginning of this whole process that there are going to be candidates who are honestly irrelevant and don't belong in this race and need to step out because they're just there sucking up the air. Really, the discussion is about specific candidates. So losers and irrelevant candidates are in the same category, but you'll find out who those are in a moment. So let's start with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Last debate, he had a really nice run in the sense that he did not have a particularly inspiring performance, but it wasn't the type where he was ruining himself. Whatever happened, the expectations, he met those expectations in the debate. As for how it went after that, it wasn't too good. He has seen his poll numbers decline consistently, and the press stuff that was going on in June and July about a flailing campaign started happening again after the first debate. We started seeing him fall to third place in New Hampshire to Nikki Haley. We saw him doing poorly in South Carolina, fifth place there. The polls were not very kind. Of course, we don't always look at the polls because the polls aren't always great, but in the sense, Ron DeSantis struggled after that first debate. He had a solid second place, and that second place slowly diminished to the first debate. And after the first debate, he kind of pushed it down. So he's still in second place, undeniably, but the confidence that one may have that he stays in second place might be a little compromised. So for this night, for this debate, he needed a night where his polling weaknesses were not obvious. When you looked at him center stage, you shouldn't have thought, oh boy, he's in a tough pickle right now, and I don't think he's going to do very well. And he needed a moment to shine. He needed to do something where he's not standing out, but it's there's one notable moment where you could take it away and you could be like, okay, he had something going for him. Analysis-wise, his performance was mostly meh. It was not, again, like the first debate, not particularly inspiring. And actually, he did not speak in the beginning of the debate. I was listening to another podcast, and they counted. Ron DeSantis did not speak for the first 16 minutes of last night's debate, which I thought was crazy because he is a center stage candidate. He is literally second place. He is Donald Trump's biggest rival at this time, yet this guy did not speak until 16 minutes into the debate. And throughout the debate, it was more about him, trying to be the adult in the room, maybe. He stayed out of the fights, which worked well for him, to his credit. There was a point where he got into a brief argument with Nikki Haley over fracking, which he never actually denied that he got rid of, which is a big issue for Republican voters. But he did, other than the fracking thing, he did love touting Florida as an example for the country. He does that all the time, and it's something he's, I guess, very proud of. He's not afraid and ashamed of highlighting everything he's done, and he kept saying, all these candidates are talking about things. I actually did it in Florida. So in that sense, he did a good job. I said, do no harm. Like, what the doctors say about when they're dealing with patients, do no harm. That's the principle that I think Ron DeSantis had to follow, and he did follow in the last debate. He did no harm to his campaign. He maintained his mediocrity in this race, and in that sense, it was a win. But he did open up being a little more critical of Donald Trump, which was new. He used to be a bit more apologetic and a little, he'd back off a little, but in this debate, the moment he started speaking, so after those 16 minutes, when he did finally speak, it was an attack on Donald Trump. Take a listen.
And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record, where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
So he really is now trying to make himself out to be the alternative to Donald Trump. And it's not just this point. He did spend a lot of the night making it about Donald Trump, but it's so crazy to me how, of all the things he could pick him on him for, the only thing that he managed to really talk about was that Donald Trump was not on stage. Like, that's it. And he did basically plagiarize Chris Christie. But that's okay. Ron DeSantis, I would say, wasn't a winner, but he wasn't a loser. So we're going to put him in the winner category. Next up is Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy, the first debate, he had a very poor performance. And when you asked people what they thought of him, they would describe him as arrogant, smug, and a know-it-all. And what is his way of combating that? By saying that he wasn't arrogant, smug, or a know-it-all, which it's not what you're supposed to do when you're not trying to come across as that. He was an irritating presence on the stage the first time around, where he'd constantly be interrupting people like crazy, and he'd always try to be this, like, try to have this, I read somewhere, he tried to have this bro-ish persona to him. This time, he seemed like he wanted to act like, he wanted to act a little more like a traditional politician, in the sense where he wanted to be more sober compared to the first debate. And I'm pretty sure that is just because of the reaction, because his poll numbers did not do good. Unlike Ron DeSantis, his poll numbers did go down after that first debate. So he wanted to paint a different image. He did it by denying that he was exactly the things that everyone thinks he is. But I guess it didn't work, unfortunately, for him. He was generally irritating to everyone on the stage. Everyone was really annoyed with him, and you can tell by their faces. Sometimes when the candidates are speaking, they'll put the camera on the other candidates, and you could look at them and you can see sometimes they don't like it. And I have nothing against Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm not supposed to, but I see what I see, and he seemed like he was getting under people's skin. He tried to be really modest and polite this time. Like, he was like, I'm turning a new leaf. And he wants to, he's like, he's trying to be very diplomatic. In the start, that is. But then I mentioned a little exchange where he had with Tim Scott, where things were really calm and nice and peaceful and pleasant. And then one attack from Tim Scott, and suddenly Vivek just, all of that was thrown out the window. Like, forget about Mr. Nice Guy. He then suddenly started attacking everyone on stage. Like, because Tim Scott brought up that literally last time around, he did say that all of the people on that stage were bought and paid for. So it was funny that he was, and Tim Scott pointed out that he was trying to be a little more diplomatic this time. And I wrote in my notes, all hell broke loose after that, because that was when this debate then became just a chaotic Real Housewives. He was insulting everyone at the last debate, but then this time he was like, let's not insult each other. When people would attack him, he's like, we need to stop the personal attacks. We need to back off. But he was literally telling people not to do what he did the last debate. And it made no sense. He tried to do something. I was reading a conservative op-ed this morning about how he seemed ingenuine. Like, even Trump voters who he's trying to court aren't going to necessarily like this. It just doesn't seem like it's good or genuine. So I would say, compared to his first performance, if I even had to give him credit for that first performance, I called him a fourth place person, so right in the middle. But if I had to call him if I compared this time and last time, because last time he was so untested and new and not on the national stage before, we just basically got to see a new open book. It made no sense for him to just completely flip and go the opposite direction second debate time, because it seemed really ingenuine when he tried to be really nice, peaceful, and polite, and then just a minute later he starts bloating at everybody again. So I don't think he really went in with the success that he was hoping for, but I still say he's a winner because people did worse. But what I can conclude from this performance is that he's running to be Trump's vice president. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't really think of it that way. And he seemed like a guy who didn't play for second place. But then this is something that all the pundits started saying after, which is that he is running for vice president. And now I feel that he's doing that. He wants to be Trump's vice president pick. And he's trying to make a case by defending Trump, by saying he's the greatest guy to be president, blah, 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 blah. But I wouldn't be surprised, and they said this on CNN last night, I wouldn't be surprised if Vivek suddenly dropped out before voting began just to endorse Donald Trump, just because he's building up this clout, he's building up a voter base. Maybe he is trying to court that, and maybe he is trying to go for the second place spot, and maybe he's just very genuinely passionate about Donald Trump, but thinks that he's a good candidate. I don't know what it is, but when I'm looking at this as an observer, I really feel like he's now running for vice president. I don't think he's seriously going to be a contender for president if this is the way he's going to perform. If things change, maybe they will, and maybe his team recognizes that now, and they might try to take a new approach to come across as a little more appealing. But I think for now, he's just trying to appeal to a Trump base. All right, Nikki Haley. In my view, I'm going to declare it now. She was first place. I think she was a first place performer. I said that last time too. She had a really good performance. And based on most analysis from everybody, she had the best night out of everyone. Now, it wasn't as good as the last time, though. Like, when I say she had the best night compared to everyone else, because she still participated in that dumpster fire that we had of a debate. Like, when I say dumpster fire, I mean chaotic debate. Like, it was chaotic, and it was people talking over each other all the time, and she played a big part in it. But eloquently, despite that, I think she did a pretty impressive job of veering away from the pettiness, but maintaining the assertiveness of it. And I heard it on a different podcast that it seemed like she had a command of the stage more than anyone else did. And that, I guess, worked out well. But if I had to compare it to last time, to the first debate, I don't think she did as well. I think it might have been a bit of a drop, but it was a drop for everybody. Nobody except for Tim Scott. We'll talk about him in a moment. But except for Tim Scott, literally everyone else did bad compared to the first debate. So if I had to compare the drop, I think Nikki Haley had the smallest drop because she's still trying to be herself. And I think that goes a distance. Now, I think she's also dispelled any talk of her running for vice president. She means business. Like, she's not trying to do what I said that Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to do. Like, I don't think she's interested in the VP slot because she went out right after attacking Donald Trump, and everyone knows that Donald Trump values loyalty. He wants you to be loyal to him and supportive of him all the time. So I think she really dispelled it because she spent a lot of the debate attacking Donald Trump, like saying Donald Trump added money to the debt. He did not do stuff on national security. He did not combat China. She just said a lot about him. Now, the one thing I wish she did bring up, as if I were on her team, the one thing I wanted to see her talk about was there are these polls that have come out that say that in a general election matchup, all the candidates would be within 2 points of beating or losing to Joe Biden, which is in the margin of error, which means the points can sway by 2 points. But Nikki Haley, on the other hand, she outperforms everybody and beats Biden by 6 points. She is the most electable candidate on that stage, and in the primary field, counting Donald Trump too, she is the most electable Republican. I don't get why she did not highlight that. I mean, I know that electability is not necessarily a big argument in the Republican primary this time around, but it's worth making, and I think it's something that she should be doing to advocate for herself as the most electable candidate, as somebody who can win a general election, because in the end, it's about beating Joe Biden, not necessarily propping up Donald Trump. So I felt like she could have included that. But as for the actual debate performance, she was very combative, and I think she recognized that first debate time, it worked really well when she went after Vivek Ramaswamy on foreign policy and says you have no experience, it shows. This time again, she went after Vivek Ramaswamy, which a lot of people say is just genuine irritation. I thought it was like when Amy Klobuchar went after Pete Buttigieg 4 years ago. But there was one particular line, which I think is the most quotable line of the night, where basically they were talking about TikTok, and Vivek Ramaswamy was criticized for basically being a little too close with TikTok. There was opposition research that was brought up about how he did business with a Chinese company or something like that. So Nikki Haley went after him, and she said a line which I felt was so funny, where she's like, every time you talk, or every time you say something, I feel a little dumber for what you say. I can't remember the line exactly verbatim. Let me play it and you listen to it.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say, because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you.
I laughed when she said that. Like, it was hilarious when she said that. I thought it was so funny that she said that, because that was so brutally honest, and you could look at Vivek's face and he was like, wow. Like, that was tough, but it was a big blow, and I think it was Nikki Haley's strongest night, strongest moment of the night. There was another one. I think she was ready to fight just about anyone. She went after Ron DeSantis too. As I mentioned earlier, she was ready to go after anybody. But one person that she wasn't really going after was Tim Scott. And this is where the moderators try to prop up a little artificial fight, I feel anyway. And basically, they tried to start it by saying, Tim Scott, why, for some context, I've talked about it on the show before, Nikki Haley was governor when she appointed Tim Scott to an open Senate seat in South Carolina. So Tim Scott is a senator right now because Nikki Haley appointed him. He could have won an election in his own right or whatever, but the fact is that he made it into the Senate for the first time because Nikki Haley appointed him. So the question the moderators ask is, Tim Scott, what would you say to Nikki Haley about trying to get a promotion over her? And he tried to be very polite, very, calm. Then they talked about other stuff. And then for whatever reason, Tim Scott circled back to this discussion and started criticizing her over the gas tax in South Carolina that she passed, I guess, 10 years ago. And then drapes in the State Department. I felt that was a little desperate. It was scrapping, as Nikki Haley put it. Basically, he said at first, we raised the gas tax. Then Nikki Haley kind of shut him down on that. And then suddenly it became about $50,000 drapes when she was UN ambassador to be put by the state, that was paid for by the State Department in her residence, which was purchased by the Obama administration, for the record. Nikki Haley did not use taxpayer dollars to pay for that. Those were already there. So suddenly, Tim Scott kind of looks a little dumb for making that type of attack on Nikki Haley. I'll play this and you listen to it. It's, of all the moments of, I think, chaos from that night, this perfectly, in a nutshell, encapsulates the seriousness of the discussion that it got to at times. Take a listen.
Never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that
yourself.
10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will pass it if you will give us three.
All you have to do is go watch Nikki Haley on YouTube.
If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas tax, which is why it didn't happen. Secondly, on the $50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. You are scrapping. You are scrapping.
I'm not scrapping.
You know I fought.
Yeah. So that was the whatever you want to call it. So Nikki Haley had a pretty nice night, not as good as night one, but okay. Now let's move on to Tim Scott. Perfect segue. Out of everyone on that stage, Tim Scott had the most improvement. I think what our biggest takeaway was, I called Tim Scott a loser from the first debate, so this time it's pretty notable that he's a winner. He had the most improvement. Last time he was irrelevant. Like, he said not a lot. He was, I think he spoke the least, if I'm not wrong. Or he was definitely in the bottom half of people. So this time, though, he spoke a lot more and he was a lot more vocal and combative. That's what you want to see on a presidential debate stage, and that's what he was doing. So the Nikki Haley sparring thing was a moment of weakness for him. But other than that, the night was pretty good for him. And he went after DeSantis. So there was a point brought up, I think, from his strongest moment was about slavery. That was in a discussion of slavery. Basically, for context, in Florida, there was talk about some curriculum changes to their history curriculum where they basically were trying to say, at least some, not necessarily endorsed by the full state, but it was a discussion to change the curriculum to say that slaves in some way benefited from everything they had to go through by learning skills. That's what they tried to say. Ron DeSantis has denied that this is what his intention was, but generally that's what the culture of education is looking like in that part, like under his realm. Like that is what it's looking like, and he can't deny it. Like he is very proud. He denied that was happening for the first part, and then proceeded to basically talk about how that was developed by Black history scholars. Like he denied that was a thing. Then he proceeded to explain that was created by them. So therefore it's good. So it highlighted at least some of the failures of Ron DeSantis' attempts at a culture war. But this is where, anyway, back to Tim Scott. This is where Tim Scott came in because the moderators asked Tim Scott about this. And I think his strongest moment came when he went head on about this. First half was okay. I won't put in the second half. The second half was basically him attacking President Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program. I honestly didn't get, I get why he said it, but I did not get the necessity or relevance to the point he was making. I think his point was really strong just without that, but whatever. The campaign made a choice. But here, take a listen to Scott's strongest moment from the night.
What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's.
And again, the other only memorable moment was the sad attack on Nikki Haley. Like, it seemed like when you're watching it in the chronological order of how it went, it really looked like Scott peaked when he was talking about when he made his response to Ron DeSantis, and then suddenly everything just went away, and now he just was begging for relevance. Like, he was doing really good. I don't get why he did the attack on Nikki Haley. Like, that was not necessary. But whatever, I would still say he was a winner because he spoke more. He was more successful this night compared to the last. And of everybody else, he had improvement. Like he improved over the last performance. So that was good for him. But I still think that maybe it's a VP attempt because Nikki Haley is his biggest competition in that lane for the non-Trump vote. But the difference between Nikki Haley and Tim Scott is Nikki Haley's anti-Trump. Tim Scott is, I don't talk about Trump. He did not attack Trump, so that was something notable. And I wonder if he's trying to take the Vivek Ramaswamy approach to this and maybe trying to campaign for VP. But he had a lot of substance in what he was saying other than the curtains exchange. So, winner. Now, we had 3 losers, and those were the 3 remaining people on that stage: Chris Christie, Mike Pence, and Doug Burgum. Collectively, I labeled all of them the losers. No special moments, to be totally honest with you. Chris Christie had a couple. Mike Pence's only memorable moments were just embarrassing. And Doug Burgum, again, honestly irrelevant. But, so we'll start with Doug Burgum. He had a better night. He had a better night, like, in the sense he went from, like, negative 100 to negative 90. So I guess if you had to measure improvement, that was the biggest improvement, but it's like still ages behind everyone else. Even the moderators were not really paying attention to him. Like I said last time itself that Doug Burgum and Asa Hutchinson need to drop out, and that still stands. Asa Hutchinson didn't even make this debate this time. He doesn't need to be in the race. Doug Burgum has no lane. He's made his entire campaign about China, and China is of course an important topic, but he cannot appeal to every Republican voter just talking about that. He needs to step out. I think it's time. And same case for Asa Hutchinson. Asa Hutchinson didn't even make the debate. That shows his weakness as a candidate. Like, you are not a serious candidate if you're not on the debate stage making your pitch to the American people. Even the moderators were not letting Doug Burgum speak. Doug Burgum did not go down without a fight, to his credit. He fought for the speaking time he had, but there were so many times where Dana Perino would be like, no, we're not going to listen to you right now. We have to move to this candidate or we're moving discussion. So I felt bad. Chris Christie's appeal as the anti-Trump alternative is still kind of there, since he is still the most aggressively anti-Trump candidate, in the sense that he is ready to go an attack. Like, he's steadfast on accusing him of 91 indictment or charges from 4 indictments. He's still there. But I think Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis have caught the wind, and I think they get this is a winning strategy. And now they are slowly chipping away at his appeal. So Chris Christie was in second place in New Hampshire in some polls. Now that's Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis still being pushed down. I don't think necessarily Chris Christie has a long future. I think he still should be in the race because things could change, but he should only be in the race because things could change. I'm starting to see a waning or declining status as a candidate for Chris Christie right now. And that's just because the anti-Trump lane is starting to be populated with some more popular people. Then Mike Pence. Mike Pence, I think, was the most disappointing of all the candidates on that stage. I mean, come on. You have a former vice president of the United States who is standing at the wings of the stage. He's at the edge of the stage. He's a former vice president. Joe Biden stood center stage the entire time during the 2020 Democratic primary. He was in center stage the whole time. There was a few times where he would move around and people would make a big deal about former vice president shifting over to third place or second place. But Mike Pence was on the same part. I remember saying in the last episode, Doug Burgum and Asa Hutchinson are irrelevant because they are in that spot of the stage. Mike Pence is there. He's the former vice president. Like, I thought that he would have more of an appeal. I thought he would be more present, but I guess not. And all the memorable moments for Mike Pence were really just sad and lame. Like, he tried to make a joke. He tried to copy. Tim Scott said something about how so Biden was down picketing with unionized workers who were on strike for auto workers. Tim Scott says something about how he should not be in the picket line and in some other line. Then Mike Pence decides to copy and says then he should not be in the picket line. Joe Biden should be in the unemployment line. Lame joke. That did not land well with the audience. No one laughed, and that was so sad. And then there was another time where they were talking about how Joe Biden sleeps with a member of the teachers union, talking about his wife, Jill Biden. Mike Pence is like, oh, actually, my wife is not in the teachers union, but I've been married to her for 38 years. I'm married to a teacher. Like, I didn't get that, but that was what you remember of Mike Pence. The on-the-job training comment, like from last debate, or the attacks on Vivek Ramaswamy, none of that was there this time. Mike Pence looked tired and weak, and I wish he, as a plain observer, I wish he would have done better because of just his experience and the title he holds. But I guess in this Republican primary, that's not an easy feat for Mike Pence. But anyway, in the end, it was the JV game. That's it. Like, it's the undercard round. It's the JV game. And there are still only two real candidates after all of this, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Those are the two candidates, real candidates. These candidates are fending for second place in the GOP primary unless something changes substantially. The field needs to narrow. People need to drop out. Doug Burgum, Asa Hutchinson, I'm looking at you. And honestly, after this debate, I was very optimistic about the first one, and we saw some changes, especially for Nikki Haley, who jumped up in a lot of the polls. But this time around, I don't think the needle is going to shift one bit after this debate. I mean, maybe Tim Scott will eat away from Mike Pence or something, but the overall composition of non-Trump to Trump support in this primary is going to stay the same. I don't think the needle is going to shift. And ultimately, because of that, Donald Trump walks away the happiest and the biggest winner of this night. We have another debate in 38 days in Miami. We don't know who's hosting. We don't know who's qualified, but we're looking forward to that debate. So I don't know when I'll be back next, but I hope to be back soon. So until then, keep watching politics. Keep your finger on the pulse on this political world of ours. Check out theishaneshow.com. We'll see you for our next episode.
And so that does it for us here today at the Sean S. Show. If you liked my commentary, then go ahead and follow the Sean S. Show on Twitter and Instagram for breaking news posts and updates about the show. And if you want to learn more about political stories, then check out my political news blog on the SeanSShow.com and go ahead and subscribe to it. Do us a favor and share this episode and all your other favorite episodes with your friends and family. It's the best way for this show to grow and get more people listening to it. Thanks again for all your support, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.